as we have our beer, wine, coffee or tea. We'll get into this. We have a short first sentence. Hord ita multo post pestilentia laborum est. So, thus, or continuing, whatever, not much after, hord multo post, laboratum est, there was a labouring in the city with a ablative of a pestilence. So at Rome there was a pestilence. Undicum, from whence came a pigritia, this is a laziness or a reluctance, orita had arose for the gerundive, for military campaigns, for militanding. Tama, nevertheless, nulla quies, no rest, databator, was given ab armis, from arms, by the bellicose rege, by the warlike king, who was etiam, even present participating in the ablative singular. He was believing that to be salubria, or more healthier, to be engaged in the military, for a corpora of the juvenum, for the bodies of young men, quam, than to be at home. So if you're sitting at home in your sickness, it's actually healthy to get out in the field. Donac, until Ipsi himself, the king, quoque, also, he was morbo est implicatus. So he was implicated or tied up with the sickness himself, longinquo, probably for a lingering long time sickness. Tunc, so then, adio, by itself fully means absolutely. If you have adio ut, it's correlative, so something to such an extent that, so similar. At the same time, we have fracti, he was broken with his spirit in his body. There's the spiritus, which is feroces spiritus. So if we read up before the ut, we have then to such an extent was he broken at the same time his body with his ferocious spirit, Eli, of him, that he who before was ratus esseting, he had been thinking that there was nothing, minus regium, nothing less than of kings, quam than to dedere, to give over, ratus being a head verb, taking the infinitive, so who give over these animum to sacrifices. So nothing less of should happen to kings than to give over their minds and their souls to sacrificing. But then repente, looks like another suddenly type word, omnibus magnus parvus superstitionibus, as we have these ablative plurals. Magnus parvus means greater and smaller, to all superstitions, great and small. Obnoxious means he was following this, or he's given over to it, and has a couple of different definitions, but here it means he came into line by thinking that suddenly that all superstitions, great and small, to be given over, and he could degerit, which is a verb meaning to live or to do something. And religionibus qui etiam populum implerit. So he also decided that he would implerit, he would fill up the minds of the populum, of the people even, etiam, with religion. So these are the change of circumstances. So once he got sick, and what he would like to do was give over his mind to sacrifices. Suddenly he was fully into these superstitions, all types, and even forced the people into these religions and superstitions. Vulgo, adverb, so universally, yam now, the homines, men, plural. Eum statum rerum, so the state of things, which, qui, under Numa rege, furat, which that had under King Numa. So now the men commonly were all looking, they were requiring. Okay, that's the present participle going with homines. These men were, the rebit means they want to go back to the state of matter, which they had had under King Numa. Their unum opem, their one great hope, was, which was opem relictum, which was left to the agris corpubus, that'd be dative. So the one resource or hope left for the sick bodies was, see if a pax, a peace, and a venia, a pardon, abdis, from the gods, impetrata esset, impetrata again means when you ask for something and you obtain it. So they've asked the gods if there was a peace and pardon given from the gods, credibant. That's what they were believing. It's the imperfect version of it. Okay, ipsum regum, we've got accusative in that position. The king himself, tradunt, it is said or handed down to history. Volventum, it looks like it's a present participle with the accusative. So the king himself was volventing, he was rolling over or turning over the rolls or the pages of the commentarios. These would be commentaries of Numa. This is this previous king mentioned here. When there, ibi, in these rolls of commentaries, quaedam occulta solemnia sacrificia. Okay, well that's a pronoun, and these are both adjectives. Usually there'd be a qui or something between them. There were certain secret solemn sacrifices of Jovi Alicio. It's a certain name of Jove. It's a weird thing they did where they often name their Jove as with certain other second names in locations. Anyway, this was investigated, this was found, and in fact means these were deeds or something that had happened. And so he abdidesed himself. And so he basically looks like he's hidden himself in these operatum, in these operations, in his sacris, in these sacred things. So he was reading the commentaries of Numa and he'd come across some secret sacrifices or holy rites for Jove, and he gave himself over to do this. And the way it's put here, looks like he's secretly or hiddenly doing these things. Sed non rite ritus. Often you see this, the ablative singular, it takes a genitive, but doesn't look like it here. But non rite, so it looks like this rite, initium, so the initium of the rite, the beginning of the rite, and the curatum, and the care or diligence with which he did sacrum esse, in which he did this sacred rite. Nec solum nullum, ei to him. So this was not only to him, this speciem, this appearance was oblatum, that's ob feri tuli latus, was brought to him, of the celestiums, of the heavens, but the ira Jovis, but the anger of Jove, prava. This is where you get depraved and things from. So it looks like he did the performance of the right wrong, the beginning and the care of it itself, and so the appearance of what the results of this was from the heaven was the ire of Jove, solicitate in religion. Basically, there's a lot of worry caused in this performance of the religion, and in fact, ictum, he was struck by fulmen, he was struck by a thunderbolt with his domo. Cum in the prepositions takes the ablative, means along with or together with. I used to say along with, but probably together with is the best way. So he was ictum with his home. So together with his house, was hit by lightning and looks like it was all conflagracerade. He burned up in the house. So obviously Jove was pretty pissed off. Tullus, this dead guy. Magna Gloria Belli, who had great glory in the wars, literally of war. Bellum's a neuter. And he regnavited. So he had reigned for Enos, Duos, and Triginto for 32 years. And that's the end of his story. Mortua Tullo res. So that's interesting. So 32. The res, ut institutum. So with Tullus dead, the state as instituted now, then it came back to ab initio. So the state as it was when it was initiated, and then went back to that. And it was returned, redieronted ad patres, to the fathers of the senators. Haequi, and these are these senators, they nomina veritant, they named an interreg. As you can see, reg's the king, interregnum is the period between kings. Okay, quo comitia habente. So quo and habentia would be going together. By this man, this interregum, he had had a comitia. This is when Romans come together for an election. And the populace, this is the people, they are a plural group written as a singular, which takes the T. This people group in the Comitia, they created a regum. They picked a regum. The regum's name was Ancomarchium, or as we only use nominatives in English, Ancus Marcius. The patres, these are the fathers of senators, foreorted. They did this in the past. They were the auctors, so they had the authority to sanctify who was created by the people. So the people moved, it would be this guy, Ancus Marcium, and the fathers supported it. So, Nume Pompilae Regis, these look genitive. The Nepos, this is the nephew, the grandson, who is Ortus, that's in that position. The grandson who was born from the ablative, which is the way they do, from the daughter of King Numa Pompilius, Ancus Marcius Erat. So, his name, the nominative's right at the end of the sentence. So, Ancus Marcius was born the grandson by the daughter of King Numa Pompilius. Qui ut regnare copit, who, as he copiated, as he began taking his initiative to regnare, as he began to rule, and he was memor, mindful of the avite gloria, of the grandfather's glory, and quia, because the proximum regum, you might want to say the preceding one, the closest guy ruling, or the last royal leadership they had, it was egregium in the rest of things. It was outstanding or very well done in cetera in the rest of things. Horde, probably should be a but there in English. But from the una parte, from one side, one thing, it was non-satis. It was horde satis, not satisfactorily prosperous it had been. So in English, as he began to rule, mindful of his grandfather's glory, and because the last king had done things well, but in one thing he had not satisfactorily prospered in, ought, this is probably going to be correlatives, ought, either in neglectus religion, they had neglected religion, even though the other guy was obsessed with it, or prave cultus, they'd cultivated their religion in a depraved way. It hadn't been done correctly. And ratus is this thinking again. The man antiquissimum, that's the superlative, the most ancient, longe by far. What have we got? Moment Sacra Publica. Okay, thinking by far the most ancient things in these sacred rites were instituted by Newman. Again, Newman was a couple of kings ago. He had instituted these public sacraments. They ought to do them. So omnia, as we say, that's everything. With people, it has es in it. Everything, these things which were from the commentaries, which we saw the other king doing, something to do with an accusative pontificem. So from the commentaries of that king, here we go, there's a verb, he ordered the pontifex, like the pope, he's a pontifex, he ordered the priest in album illata proponere in publico. So, album, it literally means white, but came to mean some sort of roll or something. So the place out for the public on a table, I think we see it as translated as a white table. So everything from the commentaries of this king, he ordered the priest to place it, proponeres, place it there for the public in publico, and in the album again it's white, a white roll or on a white table. Inde, so then, it also civibus to the citizens, this was an apposition, who were desirous of leisure, otium, and the finitimus civitatibus, so the neighbouring civilization or people group, factor, which means did or was, there was hope, spes, in the mores and instituta. So in the customs and way of ruling, and we see this common way they put a genitive after the in, of his ancestor or his grandfather, that the king, in the accusative, would abiturum. So he would go off into the mores and institutes of his grandfather. So the citizens themselves and the neighbouring people, they all had this great hope that the king would follow his grandfather's mores and institutions. So igitur, therefore, or then, the Latini, the Latins, cum quibus, with who, that's the ablative form, with who, with Tullo regnante, that's the present participle. So when Tullus had been ruling, these Latini people, when Tullus had been ruling, they had ictum a foedus. They'd struck a treaty with them. These people now, they sustulerented their animos, so they picked up their courage or their souls, and I guess they're getting bold, and cum, when an incursione, that's an incursion, they had facissiden, they had made in agrum Romanum, into the Roman territories, looks like the Roman state, repentibus Romanus, that's ablative plurals, with these Romans seeking restitution, that's what the repentibus is, they superbe, they arrogantly redunted, gave a responsum, a response, that decidem, that's like being a bit lazy, you might want to say, that the regem of the Romans, the king of the Romans, would be lazy or something, and they were rata, so they were thinking, these Latinis were thinking, that he would acturum his regnum, he would conduct his kingship between the sacella, which is plural of a neuter, between chapels and aras, altars. You look up what the city is. Okay, so there's sacellum, the neuter, sanctuary dedicated to a deity, usually up into the sky, or a chapel. Okay, so medium erat in anco ingenia. So in Ancus, his ingenium, or his natural talent and character, was in the medium, in the middle ground. He was memor, mindful of Numa and Romulus. So it doesn't look like he's going to be a pushover. Et praetequem quod, and besides which, or this, magis, it was more necessary, fuisi it had been, pacem peace, had been more necessary to the regno, the kingship of his avi, of his grandfather, credibat, he was believing, cum, when in the new populo, in the new people, they had then been feroci, they'd been fierce, etiam quod illi, conticus, otium sine injury. So here we go. Hord faculty, it would not be easy into the future for to have any otium, which is leisure, without sort of some injury or injustice going, or some war. Contiguous, this would happen, even. So, the whole slab there was just that, besides which peace is more necessary to his grandfathers, he was believing, when people were new, but they would not be able to have their leisure now, so something would have to be done. Okay, so we've got a passive infinitive. So his patentium, his patience, was being tested, temptare, and any temptam, any things tried were contemned, spurned, and the tempore esse tele seemed in the time was more aptor, takes the dative, to a king Tullus than of a Numa, or to a Numa. So doesn't look like he's getting much done either. So he was tested and tried, they were spurned, and the times, more aptio, that's just a comparative. Almost done. Ut tamen. So tamen, nevertheless, quoniam since Numa in Parque had instituted religions, so Numa in peacetime had instituted religions, se bellica ceremonies prodentor, so he was even produced from himself ceremonies of war. So nec gerenta soli, so not alone would they be carried out, but even they would be in decorator. So you wouldn't just carry out war, but you could even declare a bella, you could declare wars. Alio quira, by some other right, this is jus, that's the justice or right also, from the antiqua gente, from the ancient race of the Aquiliculus. So it looks like they're copying the right of these other people, quod nunc fetials, which now the fetials are another type of priests, the fetials they have, and they scripts it so the scripts means they've written it down from these other race, quo by which now the res repetitor. When circumstances are good, they can repent or they can reseek justice. So this didn't really mean much, but the whole slab here is just that. So Numa instituted peace in. Has also come up with a way of ceremonies for war, not only for carrying them out, but even of declaring wars, and the rights for doing this. It's a very strict set of rules. Came from the Aequilae, which now the Roman fetials use when redress is demanded at the end.